Welcome to the Visual COBOL in a Nutshell series of presentations. This module covers the setup and configuration of the Visual Studio development environment. The Visual Studio Integrated Development Environment, or IDE, is the graphical workspace in which you organize, edit, compile, and debug your COBOL applications. The main area of the IDE is divided into a set of dockable windows. The user can open, close, and arrange these windows according to their own personal taste and requirements. From the View menu item, there are many windows from which to choose, each serving a particular purpose. Certain windows are essential to COBOL development in Visual Studio. Among these are the following. The Solution Explorer window allows you to manage all of your projects and the files contained in those projects, allowing you quick access to launch your source files within the COBOL editor. The Properties window allows you to view and modify existing properties for the currently selected item. The Output window has multiple uses, displaying such information as build details, debugging messages, and output from various tools. The Editor window allows you to enter, modify, and debug your program source code. Multiple editor windows can be opened simultaneously, allowing you to navigate quickly between your various source programs. The Error List window will contain error codes and messages that result from a project build or a background parse. The content of the Toolbox window will vary depending on which tool is currently active. For GUI design tools like the Windows Forms Designer, it will contain controls that can be dragged and dropped onto the design surface. Let's take a closer look. Okay, so this is Visual COBOL for Visual Studio 2012, the main IDE workspace. You can see that we have our Windows, Solution Explorer, and the properties over on the right. The Solution Explorer is a container for your projects. In this example, we have two projects in our solution. We have a native code dialog system application and then a managed code Windows Form app. They both show up here, making it easy to launch your programs. You can double click on a program to bring it up in the edit window. You can have multiple windows open at one time. You can divide the edit window by pulling down the divider bar, and you'll have two views to the same source. Okay. In the Solution Explorer, you can also have the virtual view. If you click on virtual view, it shows you these virtual folders and it organizes your source and copybooks, etc. into folders to make them easier to access. Okay, the Properties window shows you the properties of the currently selected item. So here we have a COBOL source file and we show a build action of compile, and it shows the full path to where that is located. And this changes as you go through and select a new item. It will show you the properties for the new item. Okay, down here we have the Output window. This can show various output depending on what you do. If you build your project or solution, it'll show you the results of that build. Here it shows that it compiled the project and it was successful. Okay, the error list will show you any errors that are in your program. So if I introduced an error, like put a paragraph name that doesn't exist, the error immediately is shown and allows us to double click to bring us to the source location of that error so that we can fix it. And the error goes away. With our background parsing, the error goes away as soon as it's fixed. Okay, all these windows are configurable as far as sizing. You can change the width, you can change the height. Okay, you can also move them around by dragging their title bar. So I could bring the Solution Explorer over to the left-hand side. I could bring the properties over as well, and you just position the mouse over the location that you want the window to be presented in, and just let it go. Okay, I can move it back. To its original location. Okay, you can also have these windows tabbed so that they're on top of each other, or you can float them and then move them side by side or wherever you want. Here I can position them so they're side by side. Okay, you can also make these windows hidden by clicking on auto hide. We can make these so that they're reduced to just a title over on the right hand side, and when we want them to come into view, we just click on them. Okay, solution. If you want them to be docked again, you just click the pin. You can also just close them down, and you can open any of these windows from the view menu. So here we have Solution Explorer. We can open it up there. The Properties window is also down here. You can also do that from the toolbar. There's a Properties window icon and a Solution Explorer icon. Okay. Other windows that are under view, things like the Project Details window. Gives us another view for the project where you can sort by the file name or the type. Okay, there are also some windows you can use under the debug windows, like breakpoints, and there are more that would come into play if you were actually debugging. Okay, the toolbox, the contents of this will depend on what type of project you're using. Here for our native project, nothing shows up there. Okay, if we go down to our Manage project and bring up our form, now when we bring the toolbox up, it has all the Windows Forms controls in it. So it's highly configurable. The IDE Toolbars provide a set of icons to allow quick access to some of the most commonly used functions. There are many toolbars that can be displayed, and these are selected using the View Toolbars menu item. Certain toolbars are essential to COBOL development in Visual Studio. Among these are the following. The Build toolbar allows you to build your project or solution with a single click. The COBOL toolbar provides useful COBOL navigation and editing functions. The Debug toolbar provides quick access to debug start, step, and stop functions. Standard toolbar provides access to functions such as navigate forwards and backwards, open new and save projects and files, and icons for Solution Explorer and the Properties window. The Text Editor toolbar provides support for quick commenting and uncommenting of source lines, bookmark management, and other editing functions. Let's take a closer look. Okay, we'll jump back into Visual COBOL. The toolbars are shown up here at the top. You could arrange these any way you want. You can move these around by grabbing onto them and moving them over, or bringing them up a line or down a line. You can also select which buttons you want to appear. So each one of these different toolbars has an add or remove buttons option where you can control which icons are shown. The important ones are under toolbars, under the view menu item, and by default the Build, COBOL, Debug, Standard, and Text Editor toolbars are on. If you did not want these to appear on the toolbar, you can just click on it to remove it. But we'll bring them all back so that we can go through the options. Okay, the first one here is the Build toolbar, and you have a couple options. You can either build the current project by just clicking on it. You can see down in the output window it shows us the one succeeded, or you can build the entire solution. And since we have two projects, that causes both projects to be built. Okay. We go on to the standard toolbar, which is next. We have navigate buttons backwards and forwards. These can be used to, say in your program you wanted to see where a definition of a data item was, and we can jump up to it. And you can return to your previous location by clicking navigate backwards. And also this little arrow here keeps track of where you were, so you can jump any place that you previously were in the program by just clicking on it. Okay, and you can navigate forward. Okay, we also have the standard ones for creating a new project, opening a file, saving all, undo, which is also with Control Z, or redo. You can start debugging by just clicking on start here. You can start your application and run it. Okay, here you can pick your configuration, debug or release, which platform you want to build for. Okay, some other options over here, find in files. So if we were to position on something here like the procedure name and say find in files, we could say find that in the entire solution or the project, include the current project copybook paths. If we say solution and say find all, results will be shown down here in the window, and we can click on those to go to the various locations that are shown. Okay. Also, we have the icons to open up the Solution Explorer and the Properties window. If we wanted to close those out, we could bring them back like that. Okay. And again, there are additional buttons that you can control which ones that you want to be displayed. Okay, for the COBOL toolbar, when you're in the editor, we have some options for navigating and editing. If you wanted to go to an item, this will keep track of the last items that you search for, so that you can go back to them if you wanted. And again, you can navigate backwards. You have a go-to procedure division. Wherever you are in your source, if you say go to procedure division, it'll take you back to the first statement following the procedure division header. We have a couple options here to control how the editing modes work. We'll cover this in the presentation on using the editor. You can choose to show all copybooks or to not show them. Here we're actually showing them, so you can expand and contract them as required. You can do a quick browse on a data item. You could say we want to look at where this is used in the program. We can get COBOL source information on that, and it shows us everywhere this is referenced and how it is referenced. Okay, a couple other important ones. The debug toolbar goes into effect completely once you start debugging. So if I step into, click on the step into, the other ones become activated, such as stop debugging, restart. Okay, show next statement. This is used if you happen to be somewhere else in the source program and you want to see where the current execution point is. You can just click on that and it'll bring you right back. Okay, the steps you can step into, you can step over if you wanted to not jump into a perform, step out of for escaping a loop. Some other options that are important: comment out the selected lines. This is the part of the editor. If we stop debugging here and go back to the editor, if we just select some lines and say comment those, it'll automatically put a comment on them, or the opposite, which is to uncomment. And you can toggle bookmarks. So if you're on a current line, you can put a bookmark in there. You can go through and another bookmark, and then you can jump between them. These can be in any program, in any project, or you can delete all your bookmarks. So it just makes it a handy way to do a single click to do some common tasks. There are many configurable options that can be set by using the Tools Options menu item. This includes COBOL specific options as well as those options that apply to Visual Studio itself. Let's take a look at some of the more commonly used options. Okay, we'll take a look at some of our configurable options on the Tools menu under Options. You can also open this up a quicker way using the quick launch window over here if you have that set up. Okay, under Environment you can set up what the Visual Studio environment will look like. In Visual Studio 2012 you can change the color theme. This is not available in 2010. I currently have it set to blue. The default is to set that to light, which means that it would look something like this here. I prefer the blue, so I'll change it back. You have another option for dark. Some people prefer that. Okay, some of the other important options under fonts and colors. You can change just about every window in Visual Studio. An important one for use with COBOL is the text editor. If you scroll down in the list of display items, you can see that there are several COBOL options available, and this is for setting the color of these options in the editor. You can see here that the COBOL statements are one color while paragraph names are another, data items are yet another, and these are completely configurable to you. You can change these to be whatever you want. Okay, quick launch. This enables this window up here so that we can quickly get to most commonly used functions. Okay, startup controls what window is displayed when Visual Studio first starts up. Here I have show start page. But others prefer to have the last loaded solution they were working on automatically be loaded up again. You can do that, or have an open project dialog box. Okay. Tabs and windows, you can control how these behave in Visual Studio. Under projects and solutions, you can set the default project location if you wanted a different location to put your source by default. Okay, build and run. This is important. If you are having a problem and you want to change the build output so that it shows more information, you can change these from minimal to detailed or diagnostic. If I change the build information to diagnostic, for example, and now I build the solution, if you look in the output window, it'll give me much more detail about what actually happened. It tells me what's going on under the covers. Okay, set that back to minimal. COBOL project service interfaces has to do with what clients to generate for web services, if you're using web services with Enterprise Server. Okay, some other options, the text editor. Under file extension, if you have some non-standard extensions that you use for COBOL, you can associate them here with the Micro Focus COBOL editor so that it'll be recognized as a COBOL file. Okay, under the Micro Focus COBOL section, there are some options here. You can select to have line numbers displayed if you'd like line numbers, or we can turn those off. Other options under tab, indenting. Smart indenting means that when you press enter on a line that you're editing, that the next line will line up directly under the previous line. It's very handy when you're doing data items in a group. Okay, whether you want spaces or tabs when you insert a tab character. Okay, advanced. Number of advanced features. This one's very important. Copybook extensions. Again, if you have extensions that do not show up in this list and you want them to be recognized by the build process in Visual Studio, you need to add them here. Another thing that's available in all these windows, as in most locations in Visual Studio, if you press the F1 key, you get context-sensitive help. So here we can see our help for these copybook extensions, where it tells us that when you use these, you should also add the copy ext directive to the additional directives section on the properties page. And it tells you what all these features are. Okay. How you want occurs items to appear when you are examining it in debug mode, whether you want expanded copybook view to be in effect so that you can expand copybooks directly in your source, and various options for background syntax check, the timing and whatnot. Okay, formatting, you can have it automatically format identifiers or reserved words to uppercase, lowercase. Margins, this is referring to the margins in the COBOL editor. These display according to the source format you're using. For fixed, it shows a left-hand margin and a right-hand margin. For variable, the right-hand margin will disappear, and so on. You can choose to get rid of these if you wanted. Also, this ruler that's up here that shows this column numbers, you can get rid of these like so, or you can put them back on. You can also choose to show a mainframe style or not. Mainframe style shows you the areas A and B, and some control over how edit mode is handled in COBOL. Smart edit mode refers to how it handles comments that are out past area B, out in column 73 and higher, and how the home and end key controls where you go on a source line. Okay, some additional things under debugging. Just-in-time debugging. If you want to use just-in-time debugging with MicroFocus, you need to turn this on. MicroFocus Native Debugger. Also under the MicroFocus, there's a few options here for when you're debugging how to handle inline performs, whether or not you want to suspend at a stop run to wait for user input. Okay. Under the MicroFocus category, product updates. If you click this, whenever an update is available, it will tell you, and you can download it and install it. Directives, whether or not you want the directives to be determined automatically when a source file is added to a project. Enterprise server, various options for how to control the enterprise server, which is used for deploying web services, COBOL web services, and the OpenESQL Assistant, which is the source generator for database programs, will generate queries and exec SQL statements. So various options you can control. And MicroFocus COBOL options for handling the defaults for string length and array size when generating a client from a web services description language or WSDL file. Those are some of the most commonly used options. And that brings us to the end of this presentation of Visual Studio configuration. Thank you for watching, and happy programming.